probably. I was at a time in my life where I was like, this felt like my rock bottom to me. For me, 11/11 felt like just a moment where one door was closing and something new. Really, all of that was a breakthrough rather than a breakdown. I had to be pragmatic as well. So this wasn't just a moment in my life where I could just turn around and go home. It was like, I've got to get my ducks in a row. I've got a small person I'm responsible for. So I said, I've got a laptop and I know LinkedIn, just a cold message. I was like, right, why don't we just send them a message on LinkedIn? Mm-hmm. And that's how it started. There was no strategy. There was nothing.
Welcome to the Rise and Play podcast. I am Sophie Vaux, your host and leadership coach. In the show, my wonderful co-host and I sit down with influential and diverse leaders from the gaming industry to hear about their leadership journey. Not the well-polished stories, but the real stories. The up and down, the breakthrough, and the failures. Or should we rather say learnings? Each episode will transport you into a magical space of vulnerability with our guest. And together, you'll be reminded that no matter how hard it is, you are not alone in this journey and find the courage to keep going. Come and join the ride. Let's begin. A former product leader who worked 16 years in the gaming industry, I know how difficult it is to get reliable and usable player insights. The logistics of scheduling, recruiting the right players, collecting and reviewing feedback, it is all time away from game development. But you know how fundamental it is to test assumptions with your core audience and iterate at a lower cost before marketing an unproven game. I am proud to announce Playtest Cloud as our key partner, as I have believed since day one in the quality of their service and their mission to democratize player research. Playtest Cloud can take the hassle out of organizing game research yourself and delivers results within 48 hours, allowing you to implement changes in time for your release. Having been a long-time user of the platform, it is the industry standard used by top AAA and mobile studios, and now they also support indie developers with special pricing. Working for a year on the wrong game is an expensive mistake, and you can de-risk it now by investing in your player research. Check out the show notes for a free trial and learn more about Playtest Cloud.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Rise and Play. And today I'm super delighted calling from Dubai. I sit with Subina Kiani. And Subina is the founder of 11/11. We'll come back to that later, why 11/11. And for the funny anecdotes, as I'm connecting from Berlin, but Subina from Dubai, it was exactly 11/11 when we started to hit the recording button of the podcast. So it was like so much synchronicity recording this morning. And a bit of context about 11/11, a recruitment company trusted by over 40 gaming studios and tech studios globally. And Subina before had 15 years of experience at hunting and hiring, helping high growth companies and build a line and high performing team and fast. We'll also cover that today, but just to give a bit of a context of what Subina is doing. But when we connected at the beginning of the year in London, we just had a moment of connection. It's like, we need to talk because I love to see women building their business in the way they believe and truly align, fully align with intuition, movements of the world. That's how Subina started her company with no great plan, but more at the crossroads of her life. With a deep sense of purpose and build 11/11 based on intuition, which is not mentioned too much in leadership this day, which is a very plan, had vision, and had, boom, boom, boom. This is also an interesting part to see how with the future of recruitment, hiring, people and AI, how you, Subina, you're approaching it with your business after over a decade and with all the learnings. So let's begin and I'll welcome you to the show. Hi, Subina.
Hi, Sophie. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And yeah, I do remember that's how we connected, actually. I think we started talking about, it was to do with women in leadership roles and tech, especially. You and I have both worked in tech. We found it really interesting how we approach business or decision-making or leadership to how maybe our male counterparts do, which I thought was just fascinating. So I'm really glad we met. I think we were connected on LinkedIn for some time and I kept seeing your posts. but it's always nice to meet people in person. So thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I love that we speak the same language: intuition, energy, alignment. Words are just thrown around and a bit, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, they were definitely didn't have a place in the room, I would say. Whereas now we will be having more and more of these conversations: alignment, energy, working with energy, people-centered, human first. New words are getting thrown around, but I'm seeing it more and more. I don't know if you see it more. I even saw an advert the other day that said, I think they had to show that it was created by a human. So we're definitely moving into a different time when it comes to the workforce. I don't know if you feel the same way.
In my also path, I started to get even deeper into that because a few years ago, even when I started Rise and Play, the first, I would say, closest word was conscious leadership. I was talking about conscious leadership, being conscious, human-centered. And now I'm embracing more of the words that we just exchanged, around intuition. Because the trend I see is, well, with AI, software technology, accelerating everything that is cognitive-based, where you outsource basically the thinking. It's like, okay, thinking just the human is just the brain, and we think like an engine. A computer can do that. So what's left, what has been maybe not tapped into that much because we didn't need to, is, okay, where do we go? Why? What we call the vision. And it's not just an individual task, it's more collective to understand, okay, where is the world going? And it's on a different level that is just purely analytical. When it comes to also creativity, creation is not an analytical act either. So it comes from the heart, comes from a movement. That's how, civilization, religion, many, many big movements of the world that survived times and, millennials have been created. And we are definitely entering an era where, okay, we've gone that far with the brain, with the mind, with cognitive, and not to discard it. But there's been an imbalance on how we connect it to ourselves. And that's why I look at more consumer, from a consumer side. Today, we can order anything we need at the tip of our finger. I want food at my door. I mean, if you are in a developed country, I want to have a virtual friend. I want to have dating. I want to have everything. I just put on Netflix, but we feel even emptier, like paradoxically. So we made our life very convenient, but it's getting emptier. What is missing? The human connection that cannot be replaced exactly by technology and AI. And that's how you've studied on that thesis, the company, and how we connect. And I'm full on that. That's why I say to go completely non-digital with the retreats with a group of women and leaders I created, because there's a big gap. And this is also a business opportunity when the rest of the world is full on technology only.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. And I think that's what we talked about briefly before, is that how everything is interconnected. So it's interesting that you mentioned this. So when it comes to recruitment and what I do, so I kind of accidentally fell into recruiting. I was at university, I was going to study law, I was going to do all these serious things and, started some of the businesses. But what I realized is what I really enjoyed doing was connecting people. And above everything, I know we talk about people's careers and you have it all mapped out and visualized. And recruitment is a very personal thing. You speak to people and it's about their dreams. It's not just about a job. That's not recruitment. Like, I've done this for years and I know that the conversations that we have, people's jobs, it's their identity, it shapes their future, it shapes their future decisions. It's like, that job will take me to another country and then I can do this and I can do that. And what people sometimes just miss is how most people that I've worked with, Sophie, it's just like they literally plan out and visualize their whole 5, 10, 15 years and what their family's life will look like, how it will impact their partner, their children, or, just if they want to travel. So when it comes to what you're talking about in business and life, it's all interconnected. With the same person, like I think there was such a separation between who you are at work and who you are in your personal life. And I think those lines are blurred now. I do think now that people want to be their authentic self. They want to bring, like you said, it used to be about conscious leadership, but it's evolved from that now. It's like, it's about being authentic. It's about bringing your energy and relationship and life and business is all interconnected. And how do you just bring the best authentic you into that setting? So whether that's a job that you've done for 15 years, or maybe somebody goes and speaks to you, or, you know, we talked about this, how it makes them change their whole trajectory of their career. And they suddenly realize that what they're doing, perhaps in a corporate environment, isn't really them, you know, and they change direction completely and go and do something else. So I think we're coming into an era, I guess what we're both kind of in agreement with for sure is, I think we're definitely coming into a really exciting time. I think a really uncertain time, have to say, like the last 18 months, 2 years, the conversations I'm having with people. And, you know, the market is, I think we're still recovering from a really tough few years. I'm talking more about gaming and technology, my area of expertise, and my team. We work more in tech, gaming, AI. And, you know, we've been faced with, you've seen on LinkedIn, layoffs, restructures, shifts in funding, investment shifts. There's a bit more optimism, though, again. I'm starting to see that now. It's a bit more optimism. But what I'm seeing is that with the advancement of AI, I think people are wanting to find those jobs that are authentically aligned with them.
So I'm not in the recruitment side, but more on accompanying the people who are exactly transitioning career, jobs, companies, sometimes full industry. I see a midlife crisis for many qualified workers, professionals, so intermediate to senior, so 30 to 40s. And I have to say, more women that I find, at least in my constellation coming to me, I know her word, constellation, there's really a misalignment and suffering, actually, of, you know, you work that hard for 10 years, over a decade, with a promise or myth to be in a place where it will get easier for you, where you have more responsibility, agency, which are probably to get there. For the woman I work with, it took sacrifice. Postponing becoming a mother sometimes. Sacrifice of enduring certain comments that were very unpleasant, where you are the only one in the room, in the environment, and you navigate that to be even less yourself. For what? And so there are big questions that you receive as well. Is valid to be working at a company that by nature is corporate? Is valid to work in the tech industry? It's so bad anyway. So I see that actually more feeling a bit of hopelessness. And at the same time, because there's the need of financial stability, which is, you know, we live still in a society where money is the basis, the foundation of taking care of yourself. Of course, it's not the only way. So that's also where I company, because it's not the only way. When you don't have the job you dream, you create your job, right? So, you know, like you did. So there's that dilemma. I need a job. And then at the same time, I'm going to put myself where I will feel really sick, burned out, and I have no option. So that's more what I see with people I talk to, is like being very pragmatic. It's just the job. My soul is completely, you know, like checked out. But I wonder if also for companies an opportunity to evolve to a new paradigm where it's not just about extraction and using people as resources and then, you know, just getting rid of people when you no longer need them, because it's about humans. Like if people work are looking for a place where they can feel a bit more themselves, they're going to go away from places that don't offer that. And I'm thinking of the younger generation as well. Mm-hmm. And it's not reflecting currently how business are operating.
Yeah, no, I do see that. I do think there's a shift definitely between maybe the age bracket that you talked about. Especially if we talk about females and the sacrifice. And I've had many of those conversations with female leaders over the years as well. And like you said, it's a bit of a myth that you can have it all. You know, you can't really, you've got to balance. And what I found is that as a mum to a young boy as well, you know, there's certain times that you've got to be available for this person and that person and work. And there's no such thing as balance, really. Work-life balance, definitely not. I've never found I've connected to that. I think for me, it was just figuring out where I can give 100% or my best right now, and then compartmentalize and bring that part of me to work and that part of me in your personal life. I'm not saying it's getting easier, But, especially with COVID, people were working from home. I spoke to many parents and people and women working from home as well and leaders. But I definitely think there's a shift now, though, towards wanting employers to, like you said, offer more, or people wanting to work in environments that are more aligned with them, which means maybe they want to work in a different country or they want to work. I mean, you will see on LinkedIn all the time a constant debate around remote working and, being in an office. There's lots of, discussion around returning to work as well and returning to office, and people are more productive in offices, but it's just not the right working environment for everybody. I think what I'm finding is that some companies, maybe more in the startup environment, they're a bit more flexible. They're a bit more open to having conversations to get the best people on board. What does it need to look like for them? So maybe their benefits are tailored to that one person, because person A and person B have very different goals in life.
Yeah.
So they might say, look, I have a family. The other person is like a young person who just wants to travel. So what I found is some of our clients, I'm seeing a bit of a shift. They're saying, look, we're going to build the environment to some extent, not everything. Obviously, we have our company goals and visions and our North Star, and this is our compass, and everyone needs to align. But in terms of how you work and where you work from and what brings out the best in people, I think that conversation is happening more and more now, which is really interesting to see.
Before we get a bit deeper in what you do, because I have many questions on this whole complex human problem, on where do we spend our time, how, the origins of the company, because while we talk about it with updated knowledge of, okay, this is the situation, I'm not sure if 10 years ago it was that open into that way of approaching recruitment and seeing, again, the human at the center. So I would like to know more about what led you to start 1111 and the vision about it. Where were you in life at that time? It's not easy to start a company, a business. I always admire, in a double sense, women who start their business, because there's not much encouraging you to do it, but you do it anyway. So I'm very curious about the origin story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started 1111. I was at a crossroads in my life, actually. So I had worked in recruitment briefly before. I'd started a couple of other businesses. And when I say a crossroad, I don't know why this has happened to me, but for me, everything kind of happens at once when it comes to big life changes.
Yeah.
So I had a young child. I was going through quite a horrific breakup at that point with my partner. My business was closing down. I was financially, emotionally, spiritually, even physically, I had a really young boy. I was exhausted. I was flawed, probably. I was at a time in my life where I was like, felt like my rock bottom to me.
Yeah.
But out of that came I don't know if I was resourceful or I needed to come up with solutions. So for me, 1111 felt like just a moment where one door was closing and something new. And weirdly, I started to see 1111 quite a bit when I was just starting to figure out what I wanted to do. I couldn't really decide, what direction to go in. I was all over the place. So I would just have a thought. And my sisters thought I was going absolutely nuts. And my friends were like, you're crazy. Like, maybe just, you've got a lot going on. Your brain is stressed. Because I'd message them and say, guys, I keep seeing 1111, or I will see the message, or it's on my car, it's like 1111 and the temperature's 11 degrees. And it wasn't that it was a number. I know it makes me sound absolutely nuts, but it wasn't that it was a number. It was more that it meant something to me. So
Yes.
It's more that I had a feeling. I think that's what I was trying to explain to people. And I find now people kind of get it, but like 10 years ago, they were like, are you crazy? You're losing, you must be tired, right? But all I can say is it just made me feel a certain way, because I was like, well, do I turn to people? Who do I ask? Like, what should I do? What am I doing? We've all had times in our life where you feel so uncertain. But actually what I felt was I was kind of closing the chapter on my previous life, my previous identity, my previous me, but I wasn't quite my new me. So I was in that middle. I don't know if you've ever felt like that, but I was in that middle place where it's really uncomfortable. And I was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm not where I was. So there's a bit of that going on, a bit of just inner turmoil. But really, all of that was a breakthrough rather than a breakdown. At the time, it felt like everything was breaking down. And I was obviously, I'm a bit wiser now. I like to think I've lived through a few things. But the younger me was just like, why is this happening? How can all of this be happening at once? What do I do? And then I think I just sat down one day and said, okay, what was I really good at? What did I enjoy? I think I wrote it down on a piece of paper. It was really just a conversation with myself, like, what am I good at? Or I think I'm good at, or people tell me, that, complimented me or said that you're good at this. Because sometimes it's really hard to think, what you're good at without feeling like, I don't know, is this my ego talking? Or now I can do that exercise, by the way. The older me can definitely do that exercise. When I was younger, I was maybe a bit more naive and I didn't want to have that conversation with myself. But what do I enjoy doing? And what could I kind of start now that would just, give me some purpose? I was missing some purpose and I had a young child. I had to be pragmatic as well. So I said, I've got a laptop and I know LinkedIn. And I used to work in recruitment prior to my business closing down. I said, oh, wow, I used to be like a top performer in my previous recruitment business. Why don't I do that? So I just started reaching out to clients I'd worked with 5 or 6 years ago. Just a cold message. I was like, right, why don't we just send them a message on LinkedIn? And that's how it started. There was no strategy. There was nothing. Like now when you think and talk to people and, they build businesses and you can run things through GPT now. I didn't do any of that. I just thought, what can I do that I could start now? I enjoy doing. So started reaching out to some clients with me, seeing 1111 all the time. I always felt recruitment was very cold, transactional, very salesy. Actually, when I started, it was a very sales focused industry. It was like, you do this, you bring these deals on and you close deals. And I never understood that because I wasn't selling a product. I found it very bizarre, actually, that we were talking about sales when we're dealing with people. I never connected to that. I was like, can't be sales. This feels weird. Like these are human connections. So it felt very transactional to me. So I was like, I'll just do it differently. I'll just do it my way. It'd be more connected, more thoughtful, more considered, just, respecting what people's dreams were and not just thinking about a deal, not just skills, but matching people to people and matching people to visions. And that's where it started. That was kind of it, really. What did you come up with? Did you have a business plan? There was nothing. I think it was very accidental. But what I did find, Sophie, was that demand grew very, very quickly. So I went from having no grand strategy to one colleague who I'd worked with previously joined me at my kitchen table in my house, day one. And off we went. And then here we are, like almost a decade later.
Yeah. How many are you, like, when your team today?
The largest size, we were around 15. And then we kind of went back to more of a core team. Just we changed how the business was evolving and how we wanted to do business and who we wanted to partner with. So at the moment, we're a team of 8 all over the world. We used to be in an office. We had a hybrid. We kind of went from office space, everybody being in an office, to COVID years, to remote completely. Then we went to a hybrid working environment. And now we're just all over the world. So some people in the UK, South Africa, I'm in Dubai, but also in the UK, I kind of go back and forth. The goal is now that we just meet up in different countries instead of having a permanent office. I think it just suits our kind of vision and how we want to work. Because I've always worked globally like you have with companies all over the world, it makes you feel like the world is a smaller place as well. So I think it's fine to just be everywhere.
Yeah, it is. I mean, now with transport, within a day, half a day, you're already, on the other side of another continent.
Yes.
Thanks so much for sharing your whole journey. It's very inspiring even today, in conversation I have with, again, professional in transition, where it becomes a very complex question. Where do I start? Can I start something? And a few factors here I see, because I see patterns. That's also what I do. talking to so many people, I'm sure you do as well, because you're a matchmaker, that you were at a time where you just didn't have so much choice to think too much about it. And then the most important things are decided very quickly. What can you start now? That's the very, I think, important, powerful question, because we live in a world with the illusion of options. I could do this, I could do that, but then you have no idea how to do this, and then you have to learn that thing. And in your case, I understood as well, you had to be responsible to take care of a little human being and then go direct to revenue. So I think this is also, when you start a business, being very pragmatic. What am I good at? Instead of, oh, I wish I could do it. And then aligning what you are good at, what you like doing, and your way. Because sometimes we are good at doing something, but we don't enjoy it. And instead of saying, it's not for me, it's more, how can I do that thing I'm really good at in the way that I love? Which is what you've done. You transform what is recruitment with a different language, a different approach, where we have, again, illusion of options. With all the technology, you just started very straightforward way. I'm going to talk to people, share what I have to offer, and see. We live in a world where we think we need something to help us get started and forget we are very resourceful ourselves. It was just you, and this is remarkable. I wanted to acknowledge that when you should work bottom. So I hope for everyone listening, not having all the conditions, great. It's just, it starts with you, right? So you started. And it's really funny, I related to your story, because I started this way as well. I'm on a mission. I want to be independent. For me, I'm not a mother yet. I'm on the journey, but I was thinking, I have an idea of how I want to be a mother and available, and I'm going to work hard for it. Wake up every day with that. And what I do, it's kind of secondary question. But it's important that I get energy. And so I feel that same driver is just like, I'm not thinking about it, I just do it. I love it. And then, not looking back, here you are with a team, business growing, stability. So really, congratulations for that.
Oh, thank
you. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I had that same thought process that you had, which was I just designed my life. I had to. I mean, I've become more intentional about designing my life, by the way, and creating it over the years. And as you get older, it's such a joy and privilege because you become more, I don't know if this is just a female thing, but I speak to my male friends and female friends. And I think for females, it takes time for that to evolve, that almost like trust that you build with yourself. I don't know why that is, but I'm yet to meet a female or woman who is like, I trusted myself immediately, like 17 or 18. I mean, I don't know if it's a confidence exercise or a self-esteem thing or a self-worth thing, but it takes time to have that inner belief almost. But over the years, that's what happened, because I would just start things because I had to. I didn't have a choice. So when I started 1111, it was out of necessity. But over the years, what's happened is that I've now intentionally created my life and designed my life. And it's just something that is like guiding you, giving you energy, giving you hope. And you get to a point, I think, where like you started to do is you intentionally start to create your life, and it's not so accidental, but that generally comes from a place where you and I both said we just had decided we were going to start. But you have to make that decision to start first. And I think sometimes that's the hardest part, because you think you have to be prepared. As women especially, I found that sometimes even my friends would apply for jobs that were ridiculous, although I was always quite delusional, I have to say. So I matched their energy maybe. I used to apply for like director positions when I was like 16, and I was not a director and I had no experience. But I was like, that sounds cool. I'm just going to go for it. So I've always been a little bit delusional, but I have found that most people that I interview and speak to and over the years, they've done brilliant things, like amazing, like leadership, CEOs, worked in gaming companies and had to really fight their way to certain positions, but they just don't see it. They can't see the brilliance. So it's almost like someone has to show them and reveal that to them. So I wonder if you see that as well in your conversation. In fact, you said what we tell people to do is just start and see where that takes you. Well, you must hear this all the time with the leaders that you're speaking to.
Yeah. It's interesting. We are not in the same business from of course, the door we start from, but we are, converging to similar space and conclusion or observation. And so there's something to say about that trust in yourself, the intuition. I can speak also for women, in my own journey where there's a lot of conditioning to not trust ourselves. I think that's, in education, society, culture, there's so many layers. So it's a journey to start to trust it. Women, especially, they have all the credential. And I see the whole strength, resources, beauty from outside. They just don't see it as a mirror. And so I find it sometimes difficult where there's so much mental barriers and fears, and it's layers of shame and so on. So this is where it's interesting because we start from professional where let's just separate, like you said, work and personal, but it's not possible. I found that's why I went so deep now into a holistic where I'm on a journey where I'm going much deeper where it's taking me because that's what's needed. So in the leadership, in actually an inquiry about the self, inquiry about who you are, inquiry about sometimes your trauma, what's blocking you, because the starting is, or the not starting is completely irrational. So that's where I believe a bit of a coaching, encouragement, guidance, it appears in multiple ways to accompany people to their dream. And it is also where I want to ask how you approach this conversation. Walk me through as well a bit, how you work, whether it's the company side or people that you help them find, their dream lives, dream job, navigating that, because it's not just about the specs. It's what do you want, who you are, what do you believe, what can you see about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have really similar conversations, I think, with people I'm working with. So I work with, I'd say, kind of everyone's a professional, so they've left university. So we haven't really represented many students, although I have mentored students and graduates just unofficially. It's interesting we're talking about this, actually, I have to tell you, talking about trusting ourselves and really putting our best selves out there and being open to being visible and seen. That's actually something that I personally struggled with myself as well. So when it comes to speaking to my friends and family, they might be biased, but they've always said, oh, look, you're always doing something and it's always been brilliant. And then I move on to the next thing and do something else. And they've always found it really funny how I just start these businesses and projects and I always need something like that and I'll go on to another one and then another one. But I never used to see it myself. I was just like, oh, it's not enough. I need to do another one. Until I got to the point where it's like, what is enough? Where is the finish line? I had to go, there is no finish line. I just need to enjoy this part. And I know this is really cheesy, but you really do have to learn to enjoy the process, the uncomfortableness of it, all of it. Because whenever I have got to the end and I do the whole visualization, I do the vision boarding, I've done it all. I've done everything, all the self-help books. I've read it. I feel like it should just be titled, it should be in my name, this section in the library, this help section. I've done it all. But what I found was that even then, there'd be a voice that would just be like, that's not enough. We need to do more. So I had to have that, almost reconcile that with myself and just be like, right, this is not helping me. And I had to have that conversation with myself. And although I'd had this business, 1111, for almost a decade, I was invisible on LinkedIn. My whole team was, because obviously the way you are is how your team is, because they mirror you and you're all part of the same. Yeah. So it's not that they were doing anything wrong. I probably had a fear of being visible and seen and talking about business, believe it or not. And Sophie, honestly, we have worked with the most amazing game studios in the world and tech companies. We just wouldn't talk about it. Yeah. It was just almost like no, let's be humble, let's not talk about it. And as a woman as well, I was like, I just always felt like you shouldn't, maybe I was in an environment where maybe I align more with the Swedish culture. I know many people in Sweden now over the years where it's like, you just do things, you get it done, you do a great job, you move on. You don't need to talk about it. We don't need to start sharing it and doing recommendations and posting on LinkedIn. But in the last year, I've had to have that conversation and I started to do more work on LinkedIn. So even I've had a bit of a breakthrough when it comes to what you were talking about, which was trusting myself, because I had to trust myself to put myself out there. And I have to say, a lot of people I speak to now, this is becoming a thing as well now, which is now everyone has to have, what has to be more visible. People want to see you, people want to know what you're doing. So I'm actually navigating that journey myself, but also with some of my clients and candidates. And I guess the second point is initially, the business I started was to humanize recruitment, to connect people, help them achieve their dreams, work with amazing companies as well. I was also very fascinated about technology and business, as well as just the humanness of hiring and recruitment and the psychology of hiring. I was also interested always in innovation and what's new and exciting in technology. So I'm right in the space I want to be in. But I think more than that, what I've actually learned, and I've now even updated that on my LinkedIn profile, talking about being visible. I said, wow, for the last 10 years, what I've actually been doing is mentoring people, coaching people, confidence coaching, working with founders. For the last 2.5 years, I've worked more exclusively with just founders in startup environments or just leadership roles. It's not always founders. But a lot of it is not always about them, just their career trajectory. It starts off a bit like you said, you talk about the career, but then you realize how interconnected everything is. And if you want to have a thriving career, you need to have a thriving life.
Yeah.
For me, it's never been just about, did you land a job? Great, hurrah, bye, see you in 10 years when you want to move again, or 2 years now. Like, people don't have careers that long now. But I see what you're saying, like we speak the same language in terms of how I think people, there's all these other fears to overcome as well. Even though you're working with amazing leaders, there's all these beliefs and stories and narrative that's running through them, which sometimes I'm talking about a job, but actually the conversation we're having is about them. And it's about how sometimes people hold themselves back. We've all done it. To say that it took me 10 years to feel comfortable to talk about the work we've done as a company on LinkedIn, that was obviously something that I had to reconcile with myself and say, it's okay. Like, we can share this. And that's what I love about your work and your podcast. It's all about inviting people and giving them a platform to have that conversation almost.
Yeah. We are much more whole than we'd like to categorize it, but it's not something we decide. I think in the business, working with people, it evolves with the time we live in. So I see, although again, by the label, we might be doing recruitment, I might be doing leadership coaching. The surface is, under the hood, is really a lot of, psychological work, coaching, mentoring, over support, guidance. I accept the mission, and I think you have accepted it too. It's like you're taken by the hand somewhere and you trust it because we are dedicated more to the mission, which is, okay, how can I, help you to have a more fulfilled life, get closer to your dream and not being attached too much to what we do. So it's evolving. I think that your job will evolve if you're really dedicated to supporting the human first. It might look very different years from now because, with an AI, you could do matchmaking, you place somebody in the job. But is this really what people are looking for when they think about the job? And it's rarely just about the job. It's exactly all the interconnection of the desires of life. And they don't know it until they talk about it. Again, I look at always with the business, it's a business opportunity. Everything for me around is a business opportunity from the moment you start to change a bit the lens where you look at it. And one could say, oh my God, there's so many recruitment companies out there. Why even starting? This is where the mind is talking 10 years ago. Why are you starting? It's competitive. You have no track. No. And then you just, whatever, you do it. And you do it in a way that meets the needs of the market deeper in the way you can offer, and which is also very much you. That's why for me, the business opportunity is from the founder because they are themselves the unique lens on how they approach a topic. So I love this lens on how you've approached recruitment, which is for me quite reductive to say what it is the work, because in the end, it's not just about that. It's more a life company aligning work and life.
No, I definitely agree. Like you said, I think we've got to a place where the conversations, like you said, are not just about jobs of the future and jobs and working. I wonder if it's because the market is reflecting that now. People are having to, because everyone's so uncomfortable and uncertain. We really don't know what the jobs will look like for the future, right?
No.
Where some of the jobs don't exist right now that will exist in the future. I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, actually. We talked about, what is the outlook? And when there is AI to do all the, like you said, we can outsource a lot of the critical thinking. And I think where people will rise is their emotional intelligence. We're going to get more connected to ourselves, if anything, like you said, the humanness of it all. And I feel there's even more of a demand and feeling of people wanting to connect more as we become more AI led and focused, because I'm seeing more communities cropping up, more retreats, where people are wanting to come together to find their people. I mean, only positive can come from this, right? I just have certainty about these things that I think you have to decide how things are going to go for you. And then those opportunities kind of present themselves as well in a way. But yeah, it's interesting you talk about jobs of the future, because we say this all the time. And I think everybody's having this conversation in their businesses. What part of what we do now will we not do in a year's time or 6 months' time or 3 years' time? And what part will we continue? But I'm just seeing a rise in conversation, at least around what you're saying, which is, who am I? What do I want to do? How do I want to do it? How do I adapt to my workplace? What kind of jobs will I be aligned with in the future? So I think we just have to see how it's going to go at the moment. There's lots of people who are uncomfortable, I guess, with the restructure and the changes in the market. But I'm just really interested as well. I think we're moving as well, relocating, change of environment. I'm working more with women in the Middle East. I'm working more with companies in the Middle East, AI, tech companies. It's interesting to see how people work here in comparison to how people would work in the UK, where I've lived all my life. So it's a really interesting transition, actually.
And seeing we will have to evolve. This is inevitable. Everything is in movement. So what was maybe not so valued in the workplace, emotional intelligence, I mean, especially in leadership when it comes to human connection and creating something as a group, will be, I sense, like more of a meta trends, and the visions I have around the future, there will be more forming around community, like real life connection, meeting, and some work, some businesses that form around that. We could talk for hours, by the way, I realize. But maybe this is not around the podcast, but we can sit down and talk for hours. I think about all this fascinating topic. I just love it and see the time pass. Reflecting on your journey as a founder, my last question is, after a decade, I think you've seen and learned a lot about yourself, about the business, how you're moving in the world. What are the parts you love the most about, the work you do? Mm-hmm. And also those days where it's more challenging, the challenges you have today?
Okay, great question, actually. And I have to say, I've probably asked myself this, Sophie, in the last many times, because the market is recovering. We're still recovering, right? It's been a tough few years, especially, in gaming. It's been really, really challenging. So I probably have had to ask myself this quite a few times, and the team and I have had to talk about it quite a bit. But I think what I still love about what I do is it's people first. When I was a student at university, I sold insurance with my friends, like when we were at university call center. And we loved hanging out and being together, but we didn't really care about the outcome and the job. We cared, to do a good job. I've always cared about that because I just had a good work ethic. But you can't get excited about insurance products, right? You'd have to be to meet somebody who says, I am really passionate about this, but it's just a means to an end almost. You can't feel that way about recruitment and about hiring and a people business. It's people first. So I have met the most amazing people in all the years of doing this. Some who are now friends, some who are like, we said we could talk for hours and hours, but just my job connects me to so many people. all the time. And I know people hate on LinkedIn, and, you know, if you're a recruiter, you love LinkedIn. It's a great resource and tool for you. But for me, it's never felt like a toxic place. For me, it's, you know, because I've designed my feed how I want it to be. I've designed my connections. And I think it's brilliant that I could be sat here, like you said, and talking to somebody on the other side of the world. Like, I made friends with somebody I'd met recently at an event in Helsinki. She's in Singapore. I'm here. I was in the UK. She was from Singapore traveling to Dubai. I was in Dubai at the same time, and then going back to London. And we ended up meeting. And I was like, I love that we would maybe never have met if we didn't connect on LinkedIn or connect through an event. So for me, I think that part is my passion, and it just brings me joy, even when it sometimes doesn't work out, right? It doesn't always work out for people. We don't always have the outcome we want to achieve. But I just feel like it never felt like a job to me. It just feels like I'm hanging out with people, except they're sharing their personal dreams and vision with me, and I get to match that. I guess the challenging part, I would have to say, is how much the job market has changed, and the layoffs and the restructuring and the change in investment into gaming. Being super niche, we started off very niche actually in gaming. So that's been hard to watch. To, you know, people I've known for many years who are now out of work, trying to get them into work. But, you know, I can create so much and help so much, but I can't create a job market. I think having those conversations sometimes and not being able to offer somebody a solution has been really difficult. But I'm hoping that will change over the coming months and years as new markets evolve, and we're hearing a little bit more of optimism in gaming now. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah. And you are an optimist like I am. So yeah, it's again, evolution. Yeah, it must be hard. This is the hard part, you know, like being also close to people to feel what they feel, and although you can't carry it. But that's also a gift to be able to work in such an intimacy, you know, and be able to be part of some evolution and helping for a better future. So I totally, you know, read you here. I think we are quite similar in that sense and why we connected. Is there something I didn't ask that I should have asked you want to share at last before we close the conversation today?
Oh gosh. No, I think we've covered so many things. I guess what I'm really excited for is more of these conversations, to do more of this, have more conversations. It's something I'm exploring with my team as well. Just speaking to you and planning this, I realize that how much we have to share in the 10 years of working with founders and candidates and, you know, people in the job workforce. I love that more of this is happening. I think, if anything, I feel inspired by conversations like this today to do more of this and create a space, I think, for people that I've worked with as well in the same way. I think what you're doing is amazing. And I think creating a safe space for female leaders to come together and talk about their challenges, which sometimes can be quite unique compared to maybe other people who are in the same role. I think it's brilliant. And I'm just really looking forward to actually making it to one of these retreats in the future.
Yeah. There's a reason why we connected, and all of this, you know, falls in a very natural way. But we are shaping also the reality that we are part of. So that's why we are here having this conversation and looking in the present and having a glimpse of the future. So we are actually also influencing by this conversation and being in the space, in the room, and with other leaders who are observing, you know, similar things. So it's going to continue, and I'm looking forward to being in those spaces, hopefully as well with you too, a bit more, because that's how we're shaping the future, and we are in a place of influence. That's also something to acknowledge. You are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it was amazing, Subina, and I don't know when I will make it in Dubai, but I hope that we get to just have some time in person, because it would be an amazing evening to talk a bit more about that. But for today, as a conversation, thank you so much for you being you, you know, sharing all your wisdom, you know, journey and inspiration. I know for, you know, the women listening as well, to not overthink it and just maybe get started like you did 10 years ago.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sophie. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, I'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this latest episode of the Rise and Play podcast. We keep growing our community of conscious leaders across the industry and beyond. If you want to join this movement, please share the podcast with other conscious leaders, because we have so much more we can learn from each other. And if you want to accelerate your growth, I offer creative leadership coaching and workshop, plus other free resources that you can find on riseandplay.io. I can't wait to connect with you. Have a great week, and remember to take care of yourself. Until the next time,